Welcome back, folks. Take yourself at home at the back of our room, please. Okay, when the staff is ready to proceed, you will give me a heads up. I presume the answer is yes.
We are ready to go.
Okay, just a quick little preamble. We're now going to be considering in one way or another items 37 through 49.
Would be 37 through 42 initially.
Pardon me, 37 through, yeah, eventually we'll be considering 37 through 56. What I want to do before we go into those on each of the series bases, I want to just make a comment about my own review of these documents in advance. I appreciate all the information. I had a little bit of difficulty for my part in distinguishing between and amongst items series 1, 2, and 3. So before we move into the individual items, it would help me if somebody, the executive, Investigator McIntyre, or perhaps Becky Mason, would summarize just briefly why there's a series, why there is a series here for our review in the next moments.
So the reason is there was 3 separate complaints.
You distinguish between series 1, 2, and 3
Yes.
generally?
Yeah, so the first series is related to a June 11th, 2024 executive session.
Okay.
The second series is related to a June 24th, 2024 meeting. And then the third series is related to a June 27th and July 1st meetings as well. So it's 3 distinct timeframes or set of meetings.
Thank you.
Complainant, while she is the same person, filed separate.
Correct.
Thank you. Colleagues, just an opportunity to make any questions for our staff with regard to the entire panoply of issues before us. Probably go individually through them. Any other questions or comments you want to make? Is that clear? Thank you. Colleagues, help me for items 37 through 42. There are, 6 individuals, several of whom may be here. So
Just to clarify,
Mr. McIntyre, please proceed.
the first set of cases has 6 individuals. The following 2 set of cases has 7 individuals. There was an opening on their board.
Okay.
The first set.
So with regard to the first 6, there may be several individuals here. Have
Correct.
individuals waived confidentiality?
So in the rulemaking process, we adopted a rule that moving forward, the commission could consider, the default position was that the commission would consider the cases together. And we notify people that if they want their case heard separately, they could request that. So
These are going to be considered in
as a group.
as a whole. Is that
Correct. Yes.
a fair way to put it?
Commission is still required to vote on them separately.
I understand the voting will occur issue by issue, numbered between 37 and 42, and then onward from there. Okay, so our approach in executive sessions, for those who may be in the room but don't understand this, I'm going to summarize it briefly for you. We proceed through what I call a 5-part process. Part number 1 will be a presentation by our investigator on the issue that draws you here. Part 2 will be a time for us as commissioners to ask our investigator any questions his report, in this case, his report prompts. Part 3 is a time for those in the room or online who have indicated an intent to comment to make any comments to us. And if you choose to make a comment to us, we would appreciate if you would identify yourself by name for the record when the moment arrives. And when I call on you, the part 4 is a time for us as commissioners to ask any questions of you that your comments prompt. And part 5 is a time for us as a commission to make a decision on the issue before us. So if that's clear, ladies and gentlemen, we will proceed to hear a report by our investigator, Mr. McIntyre, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Items 37 through 42, am I right?
37 through 42.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Fiscum and Commission. Andrew McIntyre for the record. The first set of cases related to the Yamhill County School District 29J school board members has to do with a June 11th, 2024 executive session that the board held. The board is alleged to have discussed unauthorized subjects that was not noticed in terms of going into the executive session and on the agenda for the executive session. The board cited the authorized statute of 192.660(2)F, which is for legal advice. It does appear that is what was discussed at the time of the time I wrote the report. The board was unable to provide meeting minutes or a recording of meeting during the PR period, which is required by ORS 192650. And therefore, I was unable to essentially verify that what appears was discussed was actually discussed and in the minutes. However, the board has since provided some supplemental information for your review as well. At the time of my report, the recommendation was to investigate, but I would encourage the commission to review the supplemental information that was provided.
Questions for the investigator, and I'll ask the first one, and then I'll look for hands or interest in further questions. The information, Investigator McIntyre, that you distributed to us this morning, and maybe online or whatever, did that come in beyond the date of the 60-day preliminary review?
Came in yesterday evening at about 5:15 p.m., so I did not see it until.
Which is within the 60 days? Or
No, yesterday.
that's outside of the 60 days?
Correct. The report
you were-
written, due, I believe, well, I wrote the report on September 20th.
To amplify, you could not consider that information
Yet.
in the time of your report. Thank you.
Correct.
Commissioners, any further questions for our investigator on this matter? These matters 37 through 42? Seeing no hands for the moment, the next step will be to allow comments from those involved in these issues. By the way, I should make a quick parenthetical that the documents that we received in advance, Friday item number 38 and others beyond that, had a name, Alan Saul. It's actually Saul Allen.
Correct.
So for the record, we've already made that change. So, okay, folks in the room or anybody online? Chris, anybody online?
Yep, we got people on.
Yeah.
Please,
Scoreboard, have a seat.
hold it a second. Hold a second. Please sit at that chair and welcome to the meeting today. And if others want to talk, there's time to talk. We should just emphasize the normal thing we emphasize, which is we have a very long agenda today. So we want to honor your ability to both be here as well as online to speak to us. And after you do that, we'll hold questions to the end of those who want to present, and then we'll ask some questions most likely. So please introduce yourself for the record. Welcome.
Hi, my name's Nancy Woodward, and at these times of these complaints, I was the chair of the Newburgh District School Board. And just to Mr. McIntyre, one of the reasons the minutes was an issue is our board secretary had taken leave and we had no access to her. And so our lawyer had no access to see the minutes that she provided. And so we couldn't meet the time frame legally because of that. Just a little bit of background. As you know, all these complaints, and we'll go to one by one, are by one person, Rebecca Wallace. Since June 10th, when our June 11th meeting, when our superintendent went on leave, we've had 9 complaints and 7 of them have been by her, and 3 of them made it to you. We had 8 requests for public records that also relate to all of these things. I got my notes for each one. First, I'll just read my comments here. Ms. Wallace, on June 11th was the first time that we had met And our superintendent had taken leave. We had learned about that in the evening of June 10th. So that was very unexpected. We didn't have no previous knowledge of it. And that left us without any superintendent. And it left us without a financial officer on our records. And Ms. Wallace attended this as media. I actually made a phone call to Ms. Meyer that day because she has a Facebook media site, and we had not allowed her in because it wasn't registered. She registered, and then I asked, do we need to let her in because she's very active in the community, and we had a lot of controversy. And so we allowed her in to that. The district was in crisis, and I was in constant contact that day with legal counsel, Christine Nesbitt, who sent in her report. And it was imperative that we have legal advice because I knew we were at great risk for a complaint. And prior to when she filed her complaint, there had been many public records requests about that. And there had been, I believe we had no improper communication. The night that I found out he went on leave, I called Dr. Joe Morlock, who was the head of the Willamette ESD, said, what are we going to do? And he said, I will have our legal counsel call you first thing in the morning. She called me first thing in the morning. I had at least 3 phone calls with her that day. And she said, you have to have an interim superintendent. In the meantime, while this was going on, I got a phone call from a woman named Jackie Olson. She is from OASVAL, which is the Oregon Association of School Business Officials. She had come in to look at all of our financial reports, and she'd got a call to say that we had no one in our district who could do change orders. And we were in the middle of a bond construction, and the school was supposed to open in August. And so we had to have a superintendent appointed that night, and we had to have a motion that a temporary or a contract person who was doing financial things would be able to sign financial reports for us. As we stated, the minutes were not available because the secretary was on family leave. And so now they were available. They were very short. When our legal counsel, Christine Nevitz, read them, she felt it did not reflect what happened at the meeting. We had 2 lawyers. One was a lawyer named Kyle Abraham, who we had hired because Dr. Phillips had requested a severance with a package with the board between vice chair at that time, Deb Bridges, and myself. And we had never met him. We just hired him in open meeting to put him that he could be legal counsel for us. And then he wanted to introduce himself. So he came in and just said, this is how I work legally with your situation. And then that was a Zoom call with an executive session. And then Christine Nesbitt had requested that morning that she give us advice because she knew that we were in danger for a legal complaint, given the circumstances of the Newburgh School District and the issues that were happening. And she spoke at least 95% of the time in open session by Zoom, just giving us legal advice that, yes, we need to have an interim superintendent, and then things would happen. And we didn't even mention the superintendent's name. Back up that morning, I had called one person that I had great respect for, who was in our community, who had been a prior superintendent of the Newburgh School District for 12 years. She had served as interim superintendent for Beaverton School District, Salem Kaiser School District, and had worked at interim at Oregon Department of Education. So she was highly recommended and had a current superintendent's license. She said that she would serve to me on the issue of with no one issue. Was she would do it with no compensation. She knew that we were $12 million in the hole. And so I informed Director Bridges of this. And to my knowledge, the only people that knew that I had been in contact with was Director Bridges and Christine Nesbitt and myself. And then in open session at that meeting, we brought up her name that was discussed at the meeting on the 11th. And we also passed that she would have the rights when we hired her, or, not hired, but had a contract ready for her to represent the district as our interim superintendent. We had a kind of another motion that she would be able to do financial business and the person that was working in the district on contract for, as our chief financial officer, so we could proceed with finances for the district. I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Before we proceed to questions, I would propose that we allow others of your colleagues to make any comments. Please don't leave the room, obviously. And others who want to make comments, who either those who are here, I believe that would include Mr. Wolfer. Am I right?
Yes.
Thank you. And also in the room also would be
Ms. Bridges.
Ms. Bridges. So please, Mr. Wolfer, proceed if you will. And then online, we have Mr. Allen and Mr. Hayden. You don't all state the obvious. You don't all need to feel compelled to speak, but we want to make sure you have a chance to speak. And I should emphasize that Mr. DeHart may also be online. So that said, Mr. Wolfer, please proceed. Introduce yourself for the record, if you would. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Commission. My name is James Wolfer. I'm the current vice chair. At the time, I was just a director on the school board during the events of this complaint. I just want to reiterate what my colleague said in that from my recollection of everything. We followed all legal advice in that session. We were told by our attorney that we needed to hire an interim superintendent. We're specifically told that we couldn't talk about a person or anything like that, but just answered questions that we may have. That's that other part where we may have had questions about what that may look like, why were we getting this legal advice? And then we were told the rest would have to be done in open session, which is what happened there. Want to apologize that we couldn't get those meeting minutes beforehand. We really wanted to, but we were also told that because of the constrictions around FMLA, we couldn't even contact this employee who had that. So we're kind of in a rock and a hard place. We wanted to legally get you these documents, but we legally couldn't get them until this person returned, as that could, don't want to go before the bully board and explain why I was contacting that. So anything that was done outside of that was, not intentional. I can just say that for, in this circumstance, everything we were doing, we were closely trying to follow, to the best of our ability, our responsibilities under the ethics regulations and working closely with our legal counsel on how to understand those and properly follow them.
Thank you, Mr. Wolfer. Please stay attentive and we'll allow the chair to be taken by Ms. Bridges if she wants to make any comment. She does not. The gentlemen who are online, Mr. Hayden, Mr. Allen, and Mr. DeHart, will allow you to speak in any order you choose if you want to speak at all. Mr. Hayden, I see you're online. He's shaking his head, no comment. Mr. Allen, again, we apologize for transposing your name in some documents. Would you like to make any comments to us?
I think that everything was said well so far. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. DeHart, are you online?
I am.
Would you like to make any comments?
Yeah, I would just like to point out two things.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Yeah, this is Trevor DeHart.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Yeah, I would just ask that my name be removed from case number 24-366, as I was not present at that meeting. And I'd also like to be removed from case 24-358, XAM, as I was not at that meeting also.
Thank you, Mr. DeHart. The time has now come for commissioners to ask questions of those who have appeared before us. Before I allow those questions or enable those questions, Investigator McIntyre, do you have any comments on the last comments from Mr. DeHart?
Yes, Mr. DeHart is correct. He was not, it does not appear he was in attendance for this first June 11th meeting. The recommendation, and I should have clarified this in my presentation, was already to dismiss his case for that one.
That one, is there a second one in light of what he said or not?
I don't, if you want to discuss that now,
No, we can wait.
until that one is presented at
We'll
that.
wait till it's on the agenda. Thank you very much for your comment. Okay, colleagues, this is the time to ask questions of the respondents who appeared before us today, either in the room or online. Commissioners, any questions? We can direct a question to anybody who appeared before us or to a spokesperson if there is one. Any questions? Okay, hearing and seeing none, the time is now on 0.5 in our normal process for us as a commission to decide what action to take. I'm open to discussion on the part of my colleagues, please, in light of what you've heard from our investigator as well as the respondents. Comments?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Thompson, please.
based on the memo we received this morning, I'm not sure there's anything to further investigate here, so I would be in favor of dismissing these cases.
Thank you for your comment. Just as seeing a couple of heads nod, I'll just make one other question of our legal counsel or executive. Is that appropriate for us in as much as this document came in beyond our 60-day time frame? Can we still consider it as a commission in light of the fact that we have it? Either one of you can answer.
Yes, what the 60 days is 60 days for staff and
Yes.
for me to sign. But the commission can consider any additional materials provided, and I would recommend that they do so here.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification for the record. Hearing and seeing no other comments, Commissioner Payne, please, if you're ready to make a motion. If not, Commissioner Thompson is.
I am prepared to make a motion. I move the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Nancy Woodward has violated provisions, has violated ORS 192.650 and ORS 192.660, and does not warrant further review, and that the complaint be dismissed.
Thank you. Any questions, colleagues, on the basis of the motion Commissioner Payne has made? Hearing and seeing none, the administrator will call the roll. Item number 37 on our executive session agenda, please.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Chair Fiscom.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you, colleagues. We'll now move to item number 38 on executive session agenda. I'm going to presume that the investigator's report still stands as given. Or do you need to make another report?
No, they're all apply, yeah.
I understand.
New information.
Okay, colleagues, if you're ready for the question on item number 38, Commissioner Payne, please, a motion.
I move the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Alan Soul has violated ORS 192.650 and ORS 192.660 and does not warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Commissioner, thank you. I'll just have the motion reflect the non-transposed name. It will be Saul Allen in your motion with your acceptance. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes. Sorry about that.
No problem. Administrator, please call the roll. Item 38.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Chair Fiscom.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Colleagues, item number 39 on our executive session agenda, the investigator's report will stand as given. Hearing and seeing no questions, Commissioner Payne, please.
Yes, on 39, I move the commission find that the information I find the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that James Wolfer has violated ORS 192.650 and ORS 192.660 and does not warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hearing and seeing no questions, the administrator will call the roll. Item 39.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Chair Fiskham.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you. We'll turn to item number 40. The investigator's report will stand as already delivered. Commissioner Payne, please.
I move the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Jeremy Hayden has violated provisions in ORS 1962650 and ORS 1926660 and does not warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Thank you. The administrator will call the roll. Item number 40, please.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason.
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Chair Fiskham.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Colleagues, item number 41, the investigator's report will stand as given. Commissioner Payne, please.
I move that the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Deb Bridges has violated provisions in ORS 19650 and ORS 1926660 and does not warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Thank you. Colleagues, the administrator, pardon me, the vote on item number 41, please.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Chair Fiskham.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Colleagues, item 42, we'll have a brief report from our investigator about this matter before us, please. Because it's a motion to dismiss, so please, a proposal to dismiss, just clarify the record for us one time.
Yeah, Andrew McIntyre for the record. Thank you, Chair Fiskham and Commission. Number 42, essentially, the board is alleged to have discussed unauthorized subjects in a June 11th executive session. It does not appear that the respondent was in attendance at this executive session. Therefore, the recommendation is to dismiss.
Thank you, investigator. Any questions, colleagues? Commissioner Payne, please, item number 42. Oh, pardon me, Commissioner Payne has recused herself. Mr. Thompson, please, a motion on item 42. And for the record, in public session, Commissioner Payne did recuse herself from any matter involving Mr. Trevor DeHart. Just for the record, please, Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Trevor DeHart has violated provisions in an executive session or an executive session provisions of public meetings law or warrant further review, and that this case be dismissed.
The Commissioner, the administrator will call the roll. Item number 42.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair Fiskham.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0
With one exception.
with one
Pardon me?
5-0 with one abstention.
5-0 with one abstention, or one recusal. Are those synonyms? I told you to ask you a hard question.
Don't ask a lawyer those questions.
You don't know the answer before you ask, right?
Yeah, don't ask a lawyer that.
That's rhetorical. Don't answer. Hey, colleagues, thank you for that consideration of Series 1. We'll now move to Series 2 and the same.
Chair, we're going to admit Miss Nichols.
Right. I was going to ask you if that's the next step, is to admit Miss Aubrey Nichols. Otherwise the respondents, it's the same list of respondents as I understand it. And so you let me know when we're ready.
We're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. The approach here, I'm just going to summarize this for Ms. Nichols. Ms. Nichols, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Dave Fiskham. I'm acting chair of the commission today. I'm going to summarize in brief form for you what I've said earlier. Our approach in considering items number 43 through 49 on our executive session agenda is a five-part approach. One, we will ask for a report by our investigator on the issues before us. I understand that all the respondents have waived confidentiality, so we consider these as a whole. Part two will be a time for us as commissioners to ask our investigator questions. Part three will be a time for you to make any statements you choose to make to us. All of those who are here, you don't all have to speak, but you have that opportunity, and we'll give you that opportunity. We'll then ask you questions. That's part four. The commissioners will ask you questions, and then the last step is for us as a commission to make a decision. So that's going to be our approach today. Welcome, Ms. Nichols. Your colleagues have been before us on previous matters. We'll now deal with items 43 through 49 as a whole. Our investigator, Mr. McIntyre, will now report, please.
Thank you, Chair Fiscom and Commission. Andrew McIntyre for the record. Agenda items number 40 through 49 is related to the Yamhill County School District 29J. The allegations in this case is that the board is alleged to have started a meeting 20 minutes earlier than the time that it was noticed to start. It appears for June 24th, 2024, that the board noticed two separate meetings to the public. There was a public meeting which was to start at 5:30, and then on the second notice, there was an executive session meeting which was to start at 6 and would be followed by a work session. It appears that the board started that executive session at about 5:45, so about 15 minutes earlier than it was noticed to start. Therefore, ORS 192630 and 640 both require that all meetings shall be open to the public and all persons should be permitted to attend. And the governing body of a public body shall provide for and give public notice, reasonably calculated to give actual notice to interested persons, including news media, which have requested notice of the time and place for holding the regular meetings. Because the meeting started earlier than the notice time or the second part of the meeting or second meeting, there is a substantial objective basis to believe that the Yamhill County School District 29J board members violated ORS 192630 and ORS 192640, and we should move to investigate.
Investigator, time is now for questions for Investigator McIntyre, looking to seeing if there are hands raised for anybody who has a question or a comment on his report. For the moment, hearing and seeing none, we will turn to our respondents. This is your chance, as it was on the previous matters, to make any comments you choose to make to us. And as usual, as you make your comments, please identify yourself for the record. Thank you for being here again.
Hi again. I'm Nancy Woodward. As I said, I was chair at the time of this meeting. We had, as in your report, we had a budget meeting hearing as required by law started at 5:30. And then our regular meeting was after that when we had executive session. And you've all had the opportunity to read the response that I submitted after receiving Ms. Wallace-Forman's complaint about starting the meeting 15 minutes early. Now the board has lists all meetings as starting at the conclusion of the previous session, such as an executive session, or if there's another meeting that is scheduled prior to a board meeting. As I wrote in my reply, the executive session was attended by members of the press, including Ms. Wallace. So she did not, starting early did not keep her from attending. The public could not attend the executive session. And so it did not keep them. The executive session lasted until at least 6:30. We have a recording of the time of when we went into the open meeting. And so there was no intent to keep the public from being informed and participating in the special session that was held on June 24th. The board has acknowledged that the meeting did start 15 minutes earlier than posted. The Newburgh School Board is now listing meeting times as starting the conclusion of another meeting. If there's two subsequent meetings. And to use a sports analogy, I see this as, yes, it was an error, but there was no harm, no foul. Because the gentleman was prevented from attending the public session by starting 15 minutes early. And I would be glad to take any questions.
Thank you for your appearance today. By the way, that's one time when we have a basketball reference, so thank you for appreciate it. Questions? Well, let's move on to others. Mr. Wolfer, Ms. Bridges, do you have any comments to make? And if you do, please come to the chair and introduce yourself for the record.
Hello again, Commission. James Wolfer, School Board Director, during this time. I just actually want to clarify, one thing was after we received this complaint, we spoke with our legal counsel, and it wasn't, according to our legal counsel, they were not considering these as separate meetings. They said that the legal counsel considered this all one, and it was our times that we expected. However, we understood that this created a confusion for the public and have moved to a best practice moving forward, that it's not that a previous meeting, but we will say things like, if we have a budget hearing followed by executive session, followed by regular session, so that there is no confusion. And as my colleague mentioned, that I believe it was either Ms. Wallace or one of her she has a few reporters that work with her, did attend. So any violation of this would have been inadvertent. We were, again, doing our best, and then have since worked to avoid even an inadvertent violation in the future, to make sure we were never intended to not allow anyone in. So
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Bridges, any quick comments, please?
Very quick. My name's Deb Bridges. I'm currently the chair of the Newburgh School District 29J. One clarification, Mr. McIntyre, you keep referring to us as Yamhill, and I just want to be clear, there is a Yamhill School District in Yamhill, so our legal name is Newburgh School District 29J, just for record clarification. The one thing I want to add is that the public session for 15 minutes, we had one person who spoke they had 3 minutes. So we were waiting in case somebody wanted to come. And then when we came back from executive session, we clarified to see if there were any people in the audience who had expected to speak during the public hearing. And we had people in the attendance in the room who knew that if there was somebody to come in and say, oh, I missed it, to wait. So we didn't have, I guess, in the interest of trying to be efficient, we also wanted to make sure that we had opportunity for anybody who wanted to speak on the budget public hearing available. That's just my.
Thank you. Before we turn to questions for our respondents, there are 4 persons associated with the Yamhill and/or Newburgh School District online today, and they are Mr. DeHart, Mr. Hayden, Mr. Saul, and Ms. Nichols. Do any of you want to make any comments to us today? And just give me a high sign if you do.
This is Trevor DeHart.
Thank you. Please make your comment.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate that I was not at this meeting.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I've got a quick question for our investigator. Please, Investigator McIntyre, with regard to what Mr. DeHart has said, was he at that meeting that's involved, or do you know?
I don't know. I presumed he was, and perhaps one of the other board members can contest or attest.
I'd have to look at the minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Please, Director.
So one of the issues that came up as we were looking at this is the allegations in this case were that the school board did not appropriately notice the timing of its meetings. And we had this discussion before of each member of the school board is responsible for compliance with all of the public meetings law. Unlike the prior case, which was simply about what did you discuss in exec session. In that case, if you weren't in the exec session, you wouldn't have been violating the discussion rules. But if the issue is, did you as a board member participate in issuing a notice that had the wrong information on it, whether you were in attendance at the meeting or not, ends up being somewhat irrelevant to, did you as a board member issue a notice that had the wrong time on it?
Thank you for the clarification. That's a helpful piece of information, at least for me. Colleagues, this is the time to ask any questions of those who have appeared before us. Any respondent, any questions from commissioners for the respondents on these matters, items number 43 through 43 through 49. Any questions, colleagues? Okay, since there are no questions, this is the time for us as a commission to make a decision about how to proceed here. That would be followed by, in theory, a motion. So colleagues, it's time for comments, please. Commissioner Thompson, you seem like you're ready to make a comment.
I am, but I was gonna see if anybody else wanted to go first.
Commissioner Thompson yields to others. Any comments, colleagues? Hearing and seeing none. Commissioner Payne, please.
I guess I'm just a little bit concerned about this idea that there could be one meeting that complies with all of the notice requirements. And to me, there are three separate: a public meeting, an executive session are two separate requirements that require different notice requirements and different, there are different laws regarding those meetings. And to me, to say we're gonna just have one meeting, that it's one long meeting, I guess maybe I'm wrong on this, but I guess I just have a concern about that, about when, maybe I'm wrong about that, but it just seems like, I mean, knowing when to, am I wrong on that?
Executive and or legal counsel, any comments on this issue that Commissioner Payne has raised? Please proceed.
Yes, so valid concerns. There are times when you can have an executive session as part of a public meeting. So you can be in a public meeting as we are and go into executive session. You can also notice an executive session as either a standalone or preceding the public meeting. Require slightly different notice. I think in this case, the problem was they held the completely separate budget hearing, which was not part of either the public session or the executive session. So in this case, they held, it appears held at least two, if not three separate meetings. The budget hearing, and then either three meetings, the exec session and the public meeting that followed it, or a combo exec session and public meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Payne, any follow-up to the executive?
That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Can we ever make a response?
Hang on a second. Colleagues, any questions for the executive or any comments about Commissioner Payne's comment? This is your chance. Okay, let me turn to those just one more time, because if I see a hand raised, Mr. Allen, you have your hand raised, I believe, and want to make a comment as part of the respondents' comments on these items. Please proceed if you can hear me.
Yes, this is Saul Allen for the record. I'm just looking at our board meeting announcements on our website, and we do have two separate listed. One was the notice of supplemental budget hearing, and the other was a special board session with executive session. So there were two meetings for the record, for what it's worth.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Thompson, it's your turn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm firmly on the fence on this one. I do see the issue of starting 15 minutes early, though. I also see the comedy in a government agency starting early, but we'll leave that aside. But is there potentially a technical violation? Sure, I can see it, but I think they fixed it. So I don't know. I mean, we could issue a letter of education telling them what they've already fixed, but I feel like that would be duplicative and not a great use of staff time. So while I see a technical violation, I'm struggling to keep this moving forward in light of the comments we got saying that they've worked with legal counsel and they have fixed the issue moving forward.
I'll make a quick comment in a minute, but I know I see a hand raised. Ms. Woodward, you have another comment to make. Please make it. And if you please come to the table and so we can make sure we catch your voice and
Okay, Nancy Woodward in response to the discussion. My issue with this is, yes, we made a mistake. We freely admit that. We started 15 minutes early. Ms. Wallace's issue and her complaint said that we kept the public from being in the meeting. The public was never kept from being in the meeting because they could not go to executive session. And so I think that is noteworthy.
thank you. My own comment for the record as your chair or acting chair actually for today is I tend to concur with Commissioner Thompson. I guess I would say at the risk of amplifying this too far is it doesn't strike me that 15 minutes is a particular ethical violation. It's a technical violation. I think I agree with Commissioner Thompson. The individuals before us have told us for the record for our record, they have fixed the issue that existed. And so I'm not sure there's any reason to proceed farther. That's just my view as your chair. Commissioners, comments? Executive, please.
I just want to clarify two things. One, I think the record in this case was that when the individual complained, sent her written grievance to the board or to the public body, the initial response that was provided by them was that there was no violation. I think subsequently it appears they may have gotten some legal advice to change their process. Whether as you as commissioners can make the decision, I agree, I think it's a technical violation. That's why our recommendation is what it is. But you can consider what actions they've subsequently taken.
Thank you. Commissioners, let's move toward a decision. Any comments based on what you've heard from all parties? I will, Commissioner Payne, please.
Another question. Executive Director Myers, can you clarify? So complaint was made to the board. They declined to make the change. When was the change then made? Was it after the complaint to us that they moved forward with getting legal advice and making the change?
Just okay to, Mr. Wolfer, please, if you can answer that question, be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, James Wolfer again, for the record. It was as when we heard the complaint, we had spoken with legal counsel and we made the change that night that moving forward in order to avoid even the appearance of a violation, we would take these new steps. So even when we, as a board, dismissed her complaint, we did say as part of that, this is our new procedure so that this does not occur again.
So I'm sorry, when you say complaint, do you mean complaint to you or complaint to us?
To us first. So it came to the board first, and then we, as a board, didn't find merit in it, which is why it came to the OGEC. But we did say, even to avoid the appearance of a violation moving forward, we were going to make these changes, which we have since made. So even that night, we made that announcement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Payne, is any further follow-up? Is that adequate for the moment?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I think I would lean towards your position, Chair. If they have fixed it with a complaint going to them versus waiting for a complaint to come to us, I think that is different than ignoring the complaint, not doing anything, and then having a complaint come to us. I think that's a different situation. So I'm inclined to probably, although I'm on the fence, I think that makes me lean towards dismissing this. Yeah.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it very much. All that being said, does any commissioner feel the need compelled to make a motion? If so, now's the time. Mr. Thompson, are you prepared to make a motion?
I would defer to Commissioner Payne and
Mr. Payne, please make a motion if you're prepared.
I am prepared to make a motion. I move the commission to find the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Nancy Woodward has violated, let's see, ORS 192-630 and 192-640, and that the complaint does not warrant further review, and that the motion and that the complaint be dismissed.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne. Any comments on the motion from commissioners? Hearing and seeing none, the administrator will call the roll on item 4.3.
Commissioner Thompson,
aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Okay, feeling that the issues have been fully discussed, we'll turn to Commissioner Payne for a motion on item 4.4. Oh, pardon me. Commissioner Payne has recused herself on this matter, so I'll turn to Commissioner Thompson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Trevor DeHart has violated ORS 192-630 and ORS 192-640, and that this matter does not warrant further review and the complaint be dismissed.
Thank you. You colleagues, you've heard the motion. The administrator will call the roll. Item 4.4.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0 with one abstention.
Item 45, if Commissioner Payne is back. Commissioner Payne, are you ready for a motion on item 4.5, please?
Yes, Chair. I move the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Deb Bridges has violated ORS 192-630 and ORS 192-640 and does not warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Administrator will call the roll, please. Item 4.5.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Item 4.6, Commissioner Payne.
Thank you, Chair. I move the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Jeremy Hayden has violated ORS 192-630 and ORS 192-640 and does not warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Thank you. Administrator will call the roll. Item 4.6.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you, colleagues. Item 4.7, Commissioner Payne.
Thank you, Chair. I move the commission find the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that James Wolfer has violated ORS 192-630 and ORS 192-640 and does not warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Thank you. Administrator will call the roll. Item 47.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Item number 48, Commissioner Payne, please.
Yes, Chair, I move the commission find the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Sol Allen has violated provisions ORS 192-630 and ORS 192-640 and does not warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
The Commissioner, the Administrator will call the roll. Item 4.8.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Your colleagues, Commissioner Payne, item number 4.9, please.
Yes, Chair, I move the commission find the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Aubrey Nichols has violated ORS 192-630 and ORS 192-640, does not warrant further review, and that the complaint be dismissed.
Thank you. Administrator will call the roll, please. Item 49.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you, colleagues. We will move. My proposal now is that let's get through series number 3, where we take a brief, as a former chair used to say, a bio break. I'll let you imagine what that means yourself. So if that meets with your approval, we'll proceed through case series 3, items 50 through 56. The same respondents are either in the room or online and have all waived confidentiality. So our first step will be to hear a report from our investigator. Mr. McIntyre, please proceed.
Thanks, Chair Fiscum. Commission Andrew McIntyre for the record. This case is regarding the Newburgh Dundee School District and their board, school board. And it's related to 2 listening sessions that they had on June 27th, 2024 and July.
I don't know what happened.
Okay. July 1st, 2024. The board, or the complaint in this case, alleges the board had these 2 listening sessions and they did not treat them as public meetings. There was a quorum. It does appear there's a quorum that attended each of these listening sessions. These were in fact meetings subject to public meeting law because it appears that it was that the board was meeting to gather information which would be used as part of future decision making related to the budget adoption, and therefore constituted a meeting as outlined in the report. However, it does appear that the meeting was in fact noticed. Even though they didn't provide an agenda, they did give an idea or a list of the principal subjects that was to be provided, which was essentially the budget committee, and the board was to hear from members of the public related to the budget. So really the only issue was that the board was unable to provide meeting minutes during the PR period as required by ORS 192-0. Therefore, the recommendation was to investigate based on that potential violation. Thank you.
Thank you, investigator. The time is now for colleagues, my colleagues, to ask any questions of our investigator. Not seeing any hands at the moment. Any questions for investigator McIntyre? Okay, we'll proceed now to step 3, which is a time for respondents to make any comments you choose to make to us. So we'll proceed to the persons in the room. Ms. Woodward, you're up first. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience with this. I appreciate it. Just one thing I never mentioned. Oh, by the way, Nancy Woodward, Newburgh School Board. One of the things that after all of these many things happened and so many complaints, our board did have 2 2-hour training sessions in person with OGEC and Newburgh in our boardroom. And they were public sessions and recorded. And so we have had more training, and which has been very helpful. So we appreciate that. And that, on the, get my back up. On the listening sessions, just a comment about what Mr. McIntyre said. The budget had been adopted. The listening sessions were about budget reduction. The board, we had an over $12 million deficit. The community was in shock, as many of us were, and what was going to happen next. We had hired an interim superintendent, and she and the communication director felt like this would be an excellent way to get input from the community. So, but it seems rather ironic to me that the purpose of the two listening sessions was to be as transparent as possible with the public regarding the budget deficit the Newburgh School District learned of in May 2024. When I sent in the written responses place, I needed to contact the person who is our volunteer communications employee for the school district to find out who was there. I didn't even know we were sitting in individual tables. I didn't even know which board members were there. And it was also listed as a board and budget committee listening session. So it wasn't just the board, it was the board and the budget committee, which is comprised of 14 people. There's one citizen from each of our zones. And so we all sat at individual tables, and we had no interaction with each other. And as I said, I was not aware who attended the meeting. On line 7, page 17 on your page, I have an issue with what Mr. McIntyre said. He said, I claimed that we sat at separate tables and had no interaction. That is a fact. It was reported in 2 reporters from other news sources, and Ms. Wallace's were there. And there are pictures on the front page of the Newburgh Graphic of us sitting at separate tables talking with the public. So it does seem ironic that Ms. Wallace, who was allowed to attend executive sessions as news media, did not attend either listening session, while other news media from the other resources attended and reported on the listening sessions. The intent was to involve the public and to listen to their concerns. It seemed to be well received by the public. The listening sessions were posted on the district website. All notes were taken by, we had pads like this, and we just took notes. And all we did was listen. We didn't say, any recommendations at all. And then those were compiled. The event could have been likened to me like we have a old-fashioned festival in Newburgh. If we were all at a picnic and different people came up to us and wanted to talk about the budget, we didn't have any interaction. So Ms. Wallace's obviously has a very legalistic interpretation of the complaint, but seems to be at odds with the purpose of listening sessions, which was to involve the public as much as possible. In hindsight, obviously, if you consider it just as a board meeting, we should have only had 3 people at each time, like hours, had scheduled them. But since it was a board and budget committee, it was more than the board there for listening sessions. And if you watch the video that's posted on YouTube, at our June 24th meeting, there was a slideshow about that had been prepared by the communications. And there were links there, and then they posted everybody's notes on the website. So there was 100% total transparency about the purpose and when it was held. And one of her complaints was that only parents received it. That's not true. It was mentioned at the board meeting that the couple days before, and it was also posted on the district website. And other news media were quite aware that it was there because they came and reported on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We may have questions in a moment. We'll see Mr. Wolfer, Ms. Bridges. Do you have any further comments to make? Mr. Wolfer does, please.
James Wolfer for the record, school board director. Just want to mention this again, as my colleague mentioned, this was at the recommendation of our interim superintendent and communications director at the time. At the time, we did not believe that this qualified for board session. Seeing that now in the future, we would treat it as such. And that would be, any violation of that would be inadvertent because the intention was to be a listening session. I want to point out for the record, I did not attend either of these. I don't remember why, probably a childcare conflict. The first one and the second one, I was on military leave. So I know that in the report, and as mentioned in the previous items, that every board member would be responsible for doing, making, in this case, taking meeting minutes or causing it to be made. Again, I think for that point, any violation of that was inadvertent and not intentional and would not happen in the future. And second, I guess just for my own sake, I don't know how I would do so when I'm gone on military duties for that time, but I will definitely keep that in mind for any future meetings that I would miss. So that's what I wanted to say there.
Thank you, Mr. Wolfer. For those four individuals who are online, Mr. DeHart, Mr. Hayden, Mr. Allen, Ms. Nichols, any comments that you would choose to make at this time? Mr. Hayden, I see your hand up. Please proceed and introduce yourself for the record, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Jeremy Hayden, one of the board directors. I just want to put my own emphasis on this. So I did not attend the first session. I did attend the second session. When we came into the room, it was very clear the procedures that were set forth by the communications persons there and Miss Dr. Radich. That essentially that they gave us the notepad as Director Woodward suggested. We essentially we're listening. They were making the comments, we're listening. We may have asked some clarifying questions, maybe to drill down exactly what they're trying to get to. But that, again, was just those people sitting there. I think between the two sessions, we had over 70 individuals and employees of the community and school district there that came to us. And then this next part of the instructions was essentially once we're done and no one else was there, we give those pieces of paper and notepads back to the communications director, and we left. And essentially, I wanted to emphasize my participation in it, plus also just kind of that formality that they already have established. What I witnessed, there was no communication or even hallway conversations or anything between any of us while I was attending the second session. So.
Thank you, sir. Let's proceed immediately to another hand raised. Ms. Nichols, if I'm saying your name right, introduce yourself for the record, make your comment, please.
I think it's Mr. Allen with his hand.
Oh, Mr. Allen, pardon me, I made a mistake. It's Mr. Allen's hand who's raised. Mr. Allen, I apologize for misidentifying you. Please proceed to your comments.
Yes, this is Saul Allen. Kind of a rhetorical question, but I guess I'm interested in how we would go about keeping meeting notes for this kind of session where it was very individual at each table, having these conversations with constituents, just as far as going forward, if we do have listening sessions like this again, to make these corrections so that we don't have any problems.
Thank you for the question, Executive, please.
Yes, 192650 requires either recordings or minutes. The minutes, yes, you could either record at each table where the listening sessions were occurring, or take those minutes, take the notes that you took and, say table number 1, these are the minutes of the listening session consisting of your notes, or a summary of those notes.
So the answer is, if I can glean an answer, it's that there is a way to comply with the law in either of those two ways, recording or compiled notes.
Yes.
Mr. Allen, is that adequate? Any other question?
Yes, and I guess I believe that we did provide all of those notes that we took. So I assume they weren't timed with actual minutes, which would be something to do going forward. But
thank you. Okay, now is the time for questions from colleagues for the respondents who have appeared before us. Any questions from any commissioner to any of those individuals? Seeing no hands, one more chance for a hand to be raised to ask a question if there are questions. Hearing and seeing none, then the time comes for us to discuss as commissioners how to react to this proposal before us. We'll vote individually when the time comes on whatever motion is made, but items 50 through 56. Any comments on how we ought to proceed here, colleagues? I'm looking for a motion or discussion or a motion on how to proceed here.
Mr. Chair, just
Mr. Thompson, a question or a comment or a
Just a
motion?
Comment, I mean, I guess. I mean, it sounds like this was posted everywhere. The news media knew about it. The public knew about it. Notes were taken, notes were turned in and put online. I'm just struggling to see a violation here.
And I would concur, a violation of the sort that our option is to dismiss or proceed to an investigation. If we do the latter, those of you who appeared before us, please understand that if we were to take that action, which is an if, not a since we haven't taken that action. If we were to proceed, all that means is we need more information. It does not mean that we have found there to be an ethics violation, just as a preamble to what the action we take, if that was the action we take. Otherwise, the option is to dismiss. I would associate myself with Commissioner Thompson's comment that this doesn't strike me, again, as a hugely important matter that goes to the heart of an ethics violation under Oregon law we're charged to administer. That said, I will yield to colleagues for further discussion or motion.
Just to clarify, Chair, this is not an ethics violation. This is a public meetings violation.
Pardon me.
And,
thank you.
And the nature of violations, they're all kind of technical, right?
Thank you.
That's the nature of these violations.
We now know for sure why our legal counsel is here to correct. Importantly, that your chair has made a mistake, which won't be the first one or the last. Counsel, thank you for that clarification. Very helpful for the record. Colleagues, how do you want to proceed?
I mean, I'm just going to comment with you, Chair, that this is feeling a little new for me because we have had mostly ethical violations come before us, and these new public meetings law violations feel different. They feel like technical violations. They, to kind of come after Ms. Woodward to say, what's the harm, what's the foul to some of these violations. But I do think we have to be careful to just take them all so lightly, because I think as they come before us, they are different. They're not ethical violations, but they are still violations of public meeting laws. And I'm kind of getting the sense that we may start to just feel like death by 1,000 cuts from some of these violations that are coming before us, of like, it's just a technical violation. Nobody was harmed. Like, what's the big deal? And I do think like it is still our job as a commission to uphold and enforce these violations. I'm not commenting on this particular one per se, but I do think we have to keep that in mind, that is our job too now. It's a new job for us. But I am also feeling like some of this just seems different for us. But I just want to keep that in mind as we go forward as a commission, that it feels different and it is different, but and it just feels technical, but it is our job, I think, in some sense, and it's a different job for us and a new job. So it may just feel different in that sense. But I do think even though it's a technical violation, it's still our job to enforce them. So we just have to keep that in mind as we move forward, I think.
Mr. Payne, good comment. I think the way I'd put it is we are plowing new ground here. And as we plow new ground, we have to make some judgments about that new ground. And Commissioner McCauley, I see your hand raised, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Fiscam. I agree with what Commissioner Payne said. And but with that said, as we were going through the third one here, one of the questions I had, which Ms. Woodward answered, was about education and if they had sought training from our very well-informed training staff, and it sounds like they have. So with that, I'm inclined to support the comments and a motion to dismiss, like you and Commissioner Thompson.
Mr. Payne, you're prepared for any other comments? I don't see any hands raised at the moment, so we'll move to a motion if you're prepared to make one, Commissioner Payne, or if not, Commissioner McCauley, either one. Commissioner McCauley, make your motion.
Oh my gosh, I just closed out of my thing. Here we go. Okay, I move the commission find that the complaint information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Nancy Woodward has violated provisions in the ORS 192650 and warrant further review, and this complaint be dismissed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate the motion. Any comments on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, the administrator will call the roll on item 5-0.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Chair Fiscom.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Commissioner McCauley, item 5-1, please.
I move the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Trevor D. Hart has violated provisions in ORS 192650 or warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hearing and seeing no comments, the administrator will call the roll, please. Item 5-1.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Chair Fiscom.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0 with 1 abstention.
Thank you. Commissioner McCauley, item 5-2, please.
Yes. I move the commission find that the complaint information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Deb Bridges has violated provisions in ORS 192650 or warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Thank you. Administrator, please call the roll. Item 5-2.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Chair Fiscom.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Colleagues, item number 5-4. Commissioner McCauley, please.
I move the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Jeremy Hayden has violated provisions in ORS 192650 or warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Thank you. Administrator, please call the roll. Item 5-4.
5-3.
Is it 5-3 or 5-4? 5-3, pardon me. Thank you. Item number 5-3, please.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Chair Fiscom.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you, colleagues. Item 5-4, Commissioner McCauley.
I move the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that James Wolfer has violated provisions in ORS 192650 or warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
You, item 54, the administrator will call the roll, please.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair Fiscom.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Item 50, number 55, Commissioner McCauley, please.
I move the commission find that the complaint information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Saul Allen has violated provisions in ORS 192650 or warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Thank you. Administrator number 55, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Chair Fiskham.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Item 5.6, Commissioner McCauley, please.
I move the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Aubrey Nichols has violated provisions in ORS 192650 or warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Item 56, Administrator, please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez.
Aye.
Commissioner Mason.
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley.
Aye.
Chair Fiskham.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you, colleagues. That concludes those items, series 1, 2, 3 for the Yamhill County and or the Newburgh Dundee School District. Want to thank all those who appeared before us today, either in person or online. Thank you for doing so, and thank you for your patience with a long agenda. The commission will be in touch with you officially to give you the information about the dismissals in all of these cases. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you for your time. Hope
Thank
not
you.
to Newburgh School District 29J. Hope not to again. Yes, thank you.
Okay, colleagues, let's take about a 5 or 6 minute break, and then we'll come back and finish the executive session agenda if that meets your approval. Seeing it does, so ordered. ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to be starting as soon as we have a quorum. There's Lisa. No, it wasn't unverified me.
These are my dates.
It's just that she's outside, our tenant and doesn't have Teams. It's
Yeah,
a Teams thing. It doesn't mean that it
That's
is
fair.
not Commissioner Payne.
right, that's fine. Do we have a quorum yet? Mr. Mason's here. Ms. McCauley's here. Ms. Payne is here. Jonathan and I are here. So I think can we proceed?
Commissioner Payne has stepped away for a moment.
Okay.
And I have not seen,
Can we have our next meeting in Noah's office so we can
right?
first selection?
There is.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Where is Commissioner?
Commissioner Payne, before we reconvene officially, Commissioner Thompson wants to sample your bourbon. So
Yeah. Can we take a road trip for the next meeting? Because
I think people just, yeah, wonder how.
okay,
It just happened.
colleagues, let's reconvene the executive session under the authority I've already reviewed, and the time is 5 minutes to 11 on the date is November 1. We will now proceed through continue other executive session matters. The first one being item number 5.7. Our procedure is going to be the same. Is Ms. Humble online, or is there her attorney here?
Right now.
Is this Mr. Bolin, the attorney for Ms. Humble? No,
They're online.
okay.
That for some reason, there we go.
Good morning.
Okay, Mr. Bolin, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Humble, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. Okay, colleagues, we have just reconvened our executive session on November 1. We are moving to our number 57 item. Let me just give you a quick summary, Ms. Humble and Mr. Bolin, about how we intend to proceed today. First, for the record, my name is Dave Fiscum, and I'm the acting chair of the commission for today. We go through a 5-part process to consider such matters as the one before us involving your case. We get a presentation by our investigator. We have a time second for us as commissioners to ask our investigator questions. Next, there'll be a time for you to make any comment you choose to make to us for the record. And if and when you take advantage of this opportunity, please introduce yourself for the record. For step 4 will be a time for us as commissioners to ask you questions if we have any. And step 5 will be a time for the commission to discuss and make a decision on the matter involving you, Ms. Humble. That said, we will turn to our investigator, Mr. Pacheco. Please make your report.
Chair Fiscum and Commissioners, this is Investigator Daniel Pacheco for the record. Agenda item 57 in your meeting book is a preliminary review report for Shelley Humble, Airport Manager for the City of Creswell. After completing the preliminary review report, the complainant submitted additional information which was provided to Ms. Humble's attorney, Charlie Bolin, for a formal response. This information has also been provided to the Commissioners. The complainant in this case alleges that Ms. Humble was met with a conflict of interest and used her position to financially benefit Viper Aviation, an aircraft maintenance shop that leases from the city airport and is also owned by Ms. Humble's husband. In this case, because Viper Aviation is a business with which Ms. Humble is associated, any actions, decisions, or recommendations she takes that could or would provide Viper Aviation with a financial benefit or detriment would result in a conflict of interest. In such an instance, Ms. Humble would be required to declare the nature of her conflict in writing to her appointed authority as required by ORS 244.120 sub 1 sub C. In this case, it appears Ms. Humble failed to do so when working on an airport grant request and an aviation parking policy. Next, per ORS 244.040 sub 1, it is not allowable for a public official to create an opportunity for themselves, a relative, or a business with which they are associated that could result in a financial benefit or detriment. It appears that but for holding her position as the airport manager, Ms. Humble would not have had the opportunity to work on airport grants and policies where she may have made decisions, recommendations, or actions that may have provided Viper Aviation with a financial benefit or avoidance of a financial detriment. As noted in the preliminary review report, commission staff was presented with a lot of information that was not fully addressed. This included the allegation that Ms. Humble received gifts in the form of complimentary flights while in her position as the airport manager, Additionally, it was discovered late in the preliminary review that Ms. Humble's husband has a second aviation business, which lists the city airport as the primary business address. Should this case move to investigation, Commission staff would seek to clarify Ms. Humble's involvement in the grant request and parking policies. Additionally, Commission staff would seek to determine if she received a complimentary flight and gather additional information on her husband's second business to determine if she was met with additional conflicts of interest. The recommendation in your books is to move this case to investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, investigator. The time is now for. Pardon me? Maybe that was an echo. Okay. The time is now for commissioners to ask Mr. Pacheco any questions that emerged from his report. So I'm looking to see if colleagues have any questions for Mr. Pacheco before we proceed forward. For the moment, hearing and seeing none, this is the time now for you, Mr. Boland, or you, Ms. Humble, to make any comments you choose to make to us for the record. And please choose which one of you or both of you speaks. And as you do, identify yourself for the record. We'll be listening to what you have to say to us. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. I will be speaking, and Ms. Humble also will speak. Is everyone able to hear me?
Thank you. Please proceed.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to appear before you this morning. Again, Charles Boland, and I'm representing Shelley Humble. First of all, I wanted to just express my frustration that this complainant has weaponized the system and has forum shopped repeatedly from federal to state departments, and now he's back again. Unfortunately, the vendetta against Ms. Humble has now found its way to your governmental body. In fact, Investigator Pacheco noted on page 12 of his report that the complainant in this matter raised issues and alleged ethics violations by Ms. Humble that went beyond 25 years plus. And I understand that per statute, the commission can only investigate up to 4 years. But I think the extreme expanse of the complainant's grievances should be a red flag to the motivations at play here. I understand that, I'm sure everyone before me has gotten in here and said the exact same thing. This is unfair, whatever. But I think if you objectively look at it, you're talking about someone who raised almost 30 years of allegations. And then after, in fact, he initially raised allegations, he provided more allegations during the time frame of Investigator Pacheco's initial allegations. However, I would say this, on October 21st, Investigator Pacheco received additional allegations from this complainant. That's in addition to the over 30 allegations that were part of his original and then supplemental complaint. My client and I have not had the opportunity to respond to Investigator Pacheco's additional complaints that he received on October 21st. I'm not critical of him. In fact, it's my fault. I've been in a trial for the past 2 weeks, and I apologize for that. We'd like to have more time to respond to the multiple new accusations and to have this process continue within the confidential stage in order to do so. Taking this investigation out of its current stage simply adds more fuel to this complainant's motivations here. However, if our request is denied, then it's our position that not only is there a lack of good cause to justify a formal investigation, but there's a lack of any cause to do so. And Ms. Humble would like to address the board as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boland. Let me turn to Ms. Humble, and just both of you remain attentive because we may have questions for either one of you after we hear Ms. Humble's comments. Please proceed, Ms. Humble, and identify yourself for the record. Thank you. Ms. Humble, you're on mute.
My apologies. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Shelley Humble. And I would like, commissioners, thank you for allowing me the time to respond to the complaint received regarding my role in airport operations on the Crestwell Hobby Field Airport. I have been in aviation since 1983. To say that I understand everything in aviation would be incorrect. The only constant in aviation these days is change. I found early on that aviation is a small microcluster, very complex, and uses complex terminology. I would humbly ask that if you feel that this complaint requires further investigation, either due to the lack of time to investigate and/or against a hard deadline, or understanding that you enlist the aid of the FAA. The Federal Aviation Administration is the overseer of airport operations and are charged to ensure that conflict of interest, economic discrimination, to name a few, are not occurring on federally approved airports. Aviation is a small community. There are numerous examples of businesses operating on an airfield, and there is a family member employed as staff. The best example I can give you is retired Senator Betsy Johnson and the Scappoose Airport. The last thing I want to give you is perspective. The perspective about the accusations and perspective about the complainant. First, you are just the next agency that has been given all the erroneous materials that are filled with innuendos, trigger words, half-truths, embellishments, etc. I could use many more adjectives, but I believe you get my point. And the second, I would like to give you a graphic. This folder is over 8 pounds. This is nothing but contents from complaints that I deal with from Mr. Bjorn since his boss moved on to the airport in 2021. He has filed complaints to the city manager, to the city council, to the FAA, to the state fire marshal, etc. I wish I could say that I am the only one he's complaining about. Several businesses on the field are subject to his rants also. I would also be lying if I said I look forward to this investigation. However, I believe that I will be exonerated, and hopefully you will be the last agency available for him to shop to continue his bullying. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolin and Ms. Humble. We may have some questions in a moment. I just want to make sure that our staff takes a moment to make sure that our online coverage is proper and adequate. There's a confusing picture on our screen, which is no one's fault that I know of. Staff?
I can't do anything with that. We can't remove them. We can't do I can't do anything with it.
What's the?
It's just grouped all the guests into like now we're all together mode.
Well, it's group commissioners and a guest and two guests. It's a strange picture, and I just want to make sure that this is not some perverting of our system by the person who's listed as a meeting guest.
Yeah, someone bumped a view button and it just grouped people together.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how to fix it. So
It's not an individual person. It's somebody who changed their view.
Okay. So it's
we've had this before. Can you screenshot this? We've had it's not, it says meeting guests, but it's not an actual person. And we can't, I need you to screenshot it.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
It means one of the current people changed the settings so that at the view, it gives them like an arena view so that everybody is all in one screen. And unfortunately, just for everyone else, it makes it look like there's this arena of everyone.
And it makes it look like there's an additional person. Who somebody undid it.
I did. I was able to do it.
Okay. I was.
Yeah.
So I apologize.
Colleagues, respondents, just a quick piece of context. We had an issue that was a concern for us, at least on one hand, relative to our screenshot of everybody. That appears to have been fixed by now, and so we will continue proceeding with our normal approach, which is a time for commissioners to ask you, Mr. Bolin, and you, Ms. Humble, any questions based on what you've told us today, or any other questions that might emerge in my colleagues' minds. Anybody have a question for the respondents? Executive, please.
I simply wanted to address an issue raised by Mr. Bolin, which is whether the commission could extend the period of the preliminary review.
Thank you.
And the answer is no.
The answer is no by statute, I'm going to
By
say.
statute, ORS 244-260, once the signature went on the report, the preliminary review was done. There is no opportunity to change that.
Mr. Boland, that's an important clarification that's by statute from our perspective. If you have a quick comment, please make it, but.
I do, Executive Director Myers, I appreciate what you're saying. The only thing I would add is that in this instance, there was additional allegations that were raised during the process of the last week or so that I didn't know if that affected our ability to respond to that at this stage.
Those allegations are not part of the preliminary review, and therefore there wouldn't be a need to respond to them. They will not be a consideration for this specific case.
Okay, please proceed.
Sorry. If the commission were to move this matter to an investigation, the commission could, by motion, expand the scope of the investigation to include additional matters, but that would be a whole separate process. And you would have an opportunity to participate and argue for or against and provide any information. Do that.
Thank you, Executive. Any questions from commissioners of a general sort based on the issues before us or the comments our executive just made? This is the time for commission discussion about how to proceed today in light of the issue before us. Looking for any volunteers to make comments or ask questions. Any discussion on how we ought to proceed today? I'm looking for anybody to make a comment on that. I have some first impressions, but I'm willing to yield the floor to my colleagues first.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Thompson, please.
I'm moved in the investigator's report here that the city manager is no longer accepting complaints from this individual because it was deemed harassment. And I'm also the response from the city of Cresswell's attorney that talks about the fact that Ms. Humble has received training. She and the city are aware of the relationship with her husband and her husband's business, and that the airport manager does not set rental rates. I'm trying to decide. I want to be very clear. Based on what I've seen, I don't know that Ms. Humble has done anything wrong, but what I'm trying to decide is whether the course of action to play this all the way out to dismissal or dismiss it now. I'm not sure which way is best.
Thank you for your comment. I have a question as Commissioner Thompson's comment resonates with you. I've got a question for Investigator Pacheco. You said this before, I think, but could you repeat for me and for us what else it is that you would look at if there was to be an investigation?
Thank you for the question, Chair Fiscom. So as indicated in the report, there was a lot of information that was provided I wasn't able to address. In the complaint, the complainant also stated that Ms. Humble had received complimentary flights to do some runway inspections. I did not have an opportunity to go through and contact the individual that was provided by the complainant to corroborate any of that information. Additionally, the thing that stuck out the most also was near the end, I noticed that there was a second business owned by Ms. Humble's husband, also that was listed at the business registry that was located at the city airport. Because she is the airport manager and helps with grants and which in a sense help the runways and keep the infrastructure, I felt it was important to look into that matter to see whether that she made any decisions or recommendations that could have financially also benefited that second other business. So sorry to summarize, if this were to move to investigation, I would be looking at whether there was any gifts, complimentary flights, clarification on that second business, and then of course clarify further information on the grant request she did and some policies regarding tie downs, which is the equivalent of like airplane parking. So that's it's kind of the gist of that. Hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Investigator. That's helpful. I knew some of that, but not all of it, so I appreciate the response. Any comments from commissioners? Further questions, comments? Commissioner Payne, please.
I'm seeing in the staff report that Miss Amberg, who is the city manager, is my understanding, is very transparent that she understands that Ms. Humble has a conflict of interest, and that this is something that is discussed quite frequently, and that the city doesn't have a policy about Ms. Humble's conflict of interest, and how that conflict of interest is addressed. So in my mind, I think the big sort of elephant in the room is this conflict of interest, how this conflict of interest is to be declared, because it's not being declared, and how that is to be addressed going forward. So in my mind, I think there is a problem that needs to be addressed here. I think that further investigation may be warranted, particularly as to the conflict of interest issue. Perhaps education may be helpful in this situation. I do not like when our body is used as a weapon by individuals. I do not like that forum shopping has happened here. However, I do think that we have an ability to educate here, and that's where I'm leaning on this issue.
Mr. Payne, I appreciate your comments. I would associate myself with all of them, including the last comment about forum shopping. I think it's always, I would say, quote, helpful, unquote, for us to know when that might be happening to us. At the same time, it has been hard for me over my 6 or 7 years here to know how to stop that, because it's part of what we deal with. It happens in the legal community, I've been led to believe. It happens in our community. We've seen that. I don't know what to do about it. I think Mr. Pacheco's comments are helpful to me, because there is more for us to investigate here. I don't want to use the word uncover, because that makes it sound like there's some inappropriate deeds here. I just think we do need more information. I'll stop there and see if my colleagues have any comments to make beyond that. You ready for a motion?
I am
Mr.
prepared
Payne?
to make a motion.
Thank you.
I hereby move that the commission find that there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Michelle Humble may have violated ORS 244-1202, ORS 244-0401, and ORS 244-0251, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. And we'll turn to the executive, please.
Unfortunately, the subsection listed on the agenda was incorrect. It should read ORS 244-120 subsection 1C.
Willing to accept a clarification of your motion, Commissioner?
Yes, I will amend the motion to investigate, to say that Ms. Humble may have violated ORS 244-1201C, ORS 244-0401, and ORS 244-0251, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you, Commissioner. Colleagues, any comments on the motion that's pending before us? This is your chance if you have a comment. Hearing and seeing none, the administrator will call the roll on item 5-7, please.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Chair Fisco.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Let me make just an additional comment, especially for Mr. Bolin and Ms. Humble. Please understand that as we have moved forward to an investigation, we are not, emphasize not, finding that there has been a and a violation of any law on the books in Oregon. We are simply deciding that we need more information. This distinction is not as well understood as I would like it to be, including by some members of the media. So I make this point with emphasis today. Thank you, Mr. Bolin and Ms. Humble, for appearing before us today. Thank you for the character of your comments. We appreciate your patience with our agenda. Thank you for being here. Our staff will be specifically in touch with you about next steps. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move, when our staff says the opportunity is before us, to items 58 through 61. I'm going to assume that we can consider these items on block because confidentiality has been waived. Mr. Sullivan, is that right?
Yeah, well, with the new rule that they can be considered together unless requested to be heard separately, which they have not, then they.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I appreciate what you just said. I have some background on it, but I couldn't have said it like you just could have said it as well as you did. Thank you. Staff, when you're ready.
What just happened? We do have.
Yes, sir.
Michelle Hammerson and here virtually.
Anybody else here yet?
The other two are not here.
I heard.
Janice will not
Janice
be
will not.
attending.
Is Mike Baker?
He's not come across our screen.
Let me check, see which one.
Ms. Hammerson, can you hear me?
And we've had no response, Mr. Baker.
Can you said?
I can, and I have Doug Mendenhall in the room with me.
And we've had no response from Mr. Baker.
Okay, Doug Mendenhall is with Ms. Hammerson. Yep. Mr. Baker is not here and
Janice will not be here.
Janice Baker will not be here. So let's not wait any longer for Mr. Baker. If he chooses to show up, which is his prerogative, we're happy to welcome him to our meeting. We're now preparing to hear on our agenda for the respondents items 58 through 61. We'll consider those on block in the sense of the reports on them. We'll vote individually on those as the occasion warrants. Let me just indicate that for the record, my name is Dave Fiscum. I'm acting chair of the commission today. Our approach on considering these matters consists of 5 parts. The first part is we will hear a report from our investigator on these issues. Secondly, commissioners may have a question for our investigator, a question or two. Thirdly, we'll reserve time for you to make any comments you choose to make to us on the record. We'll ask you if you choose to take advantage of that opportunity to introduce yourself for the record when you speak to us. Fourthly, we may ask you some questions based on what you say to us. And fifthly, we'll then make a decision on the matter before us. So that said, we'll turn to our investigator, Mr. Sullivan. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fiscum and the Commission. This is Investigator Josh Sullivan for the record. I'm presenting agenda items 58 through 61. This is a complaint against the Umpqua Public Transportation District Board of Directors, Mike Baker, Doug Mendenhall, Janice Baker, and Michaela Hammerson. The complainant in this case alleges that the board members may have violated Oregon public meetings law by failing to provide advance notice of their June 17th, 2024 board meeting. ORS 192640 sub 1 requires that the governing body of the public body shall provide for and give public notice reasonably calculated to give actual notice to interested groups, and the notice shall include a list of principal subjects anticipated to be considered at the meeting. In this case, it appears the board members were 33 minutes into their meeting on June 17th when a public comment alerted them that the meeting was not properly noticed. The board continued the meeting after discussion regarding the legal requirements and their bylaws. While it appears that the board typically posts the meeting agenda on their website, General Manager Cheryl Chase stated that she forgot to post the agenda to the meeting to the website for this meeting. The agenda was sent to the News Review, a local newspaper, on June 5th with the meeting information. However, the agenda information was not published as part of the UPT public notice. While the newspaper notices were published timely within a reasonable amount of time for interested parties, including news media, to attend, They did not include all the required information to comply with the public notice requirements of the public meetings law. Because there was not an agenda or list of meeting topics included in the published meeting notices, the public was not provided the information about matters anticipated to be discussed or a list of principal subjects. Based on the information available in the preliminary review, there appears to be a substantial objective basis to believe that the UPT board members violated ORS 192-640 sub 1. The recommendation is to move this case to investigation.
Thank you, investigator. Any questions from my colleagues for our investigator before we proceed forward? Questions? Hearing and seeing none, Ms. Hammerson and or Mr. Mendenhall, this is your time to make any comments you choose to make to us. We're pleased to listen to you. And as you speak, if you do, please introduce yourself for the record. Welcome.
Thank you so much. My name is Michaela Hammerson. We did send a joint letter over to Josh this morning. I don't know if that was provided to the commission. But I'm happy to read it if it wasn't.
The answer is not yet. Procedurally, we've been in this meeting for a few hours now, so that may be on the transom someplace, but we have not received such a letter yet. And
Okay,
if it's a long letter, please feel no need to read it in its entirety, but proceed.
It's only a page and a half, luckily, so pretty short. But I'll just go ahead and read it. Dear Oregon Government Ethics Commission, we believe that allegations against Michaela Hammerson, Doug Mendenhall, Janice Baker, Mike Baker, and the Umpqua Public Transportation District Board related to improper public notice on June 17th, 2024 meeting are unfounded. We respectfully request dismissal of this matter. This complaint is based on a faulty premise. The original complaint was filed by Rebecca Stafford alleging that the news review confirmed no public notice was published after speaking with Laura at the newspaper. However, there is clear evidence to the contrary, that the meeting notice was published, including the date, time, location, and virtual access web link. Key facts. An email was sent on June 5th, 2024 by former UPTD General Manager Cheryl Chase to the news review complying with their published guidelines for public notices, which required the agenda be provided. Despite the agenda being provided, the news review failed to include the agenda topics when publishing the notice on June 13th, 14th, and 16th, 2024 editions. However, the notices still provided required meeting details. The agenda was inadvertently not posted to the UPTD website prior to the meeting due to an oversight by the general manager. This does not negate the proper public notice that was intended to be published. It also is important to note that according to the Attorney General's Public Records and Meetings Manual, paid display advertising for public notices is not mandatory, and there is no legal requirement for the governing body to ensure the publication of the release. ORS 192.6401 requires public bodies to provide notice reasonably calculated to give actual notice. The notices published met this standard in terms of meeting details provided. While including agenda topics is ideal, the failure here was on the news review, not UPTD or its board. The full agenda was provided per the newspaper's guidelines. Flexibility exists if core notice requirements are met, which they were regarding date, time, location provided. Conclusion, the UPTD board fulfilled its obligation by providing public notice and agenda to the news review for publication per their instructions. The errors were administrative oversights, not deliberate ethics violations by the board. Given the complaint was based on a faulty premise and clear evidence of proper notice and the absence of a requirement for ensuring publication underscores that adequate measures were taken. We believe no further investigation is warranted, and we request dismissal of this matter. Sincerely, Michaela Hammerson, Chairwoman, Doug Mendenhall, Director, Janice Baker, former Director, and Mike Baker, former Director. And in addition to that letter, we also have the email evidence from our general manager on June 5th, 2024, that included the full agenda to the news review. We also have a screenshot of the agenda guidelines as required by the news review that simply requires the agenda to be emailed to newsdesk@nrtoday.com, which was done by our general manager. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Mendenhall. Did you make a comment? You feel no obligation to do so, but this is your chance if you want to comment.
Nothing further.
Thank you. The time is now for questions for Ms. Hammerson or Mr. Mendenhall. Any questions from colleagues? Hearing and seeing none. Any questions, comments, general questions? Mr. Thompson, please.
For Mr. Brady.
Mr. Brady, you're supposed to send those in advance to him so he can prepare for the answer. Please proceed.
I think he's going to be able to handle it.
Okay.
Can you tell me a little bit? I mean, it was mentioned in the respondents mentioned that the Attorney General's manual for public meetings says that it needs to be sent, but the public body is not responsible for its publication. Could you expand on that just a little bit for me?
Yeah, there's, to my knowledge, in there related to that point. What the public meetings manual is, there's no requirement that you provide newspaper notice, that there's a publication in the newspaper. And that's what the method that they should provide notice was through the newspaper. There is, many bodies provide it on their website. And with this particular one, the question is whether or not they provided the key topics or an agenda at this meeting. So.
I told you to answer my question.
Follow up, any follow-up?
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments or questions before we decide how to proceed, colleagues? This is your chance. Hearing and seeing none so far, the time has now come for us to decide how to proceed on this matter before us. Item number 57. Thank you.
58 through 61.
Pardon me, 58 through 61. I apologize. See Mr. Mendenhall's picture. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Mendenhall. I knew you were in the room, but we now see your picture. Thank you. Thank you. Colleagues, any instincts about how to proceed on this matter? I'm looking for a motion now. Anybody prepared to make a motion? Commissioner Payne, a motion. Commissioner Thompson, a motion. Question, comment? Commissioner Mason, McCauley, Gutierrez.
Not hearing any discussion, I'm prepared to move that the commission find that there is substantial objective basis for believing that Mike Baker may have violated ORS 1926401 and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you for the motion. Colleagues, you've heard the motion. It's to move forward. Any comments on the motion before we take a vote? Mr. Thompson, please.
For me, I think this and one of my fellow commissioners, correct me if I'm misunderstanding this, please. But to me, this comes down to the issue of it should have been posted on the website as was common practice. The former executive director did not post it on the website, but the responsibility for that posting falls on the district directors. Okay. All right. So that, it's kind of where I am. So
how does the issue of the sending a notice to a newspaper factor into your comment, if it does at all?
I think that is an extra that was part of their process and it was done. But their entire process was not done. They did half of that, what I understand their process to be, but not the other half of posting it on the website.
Thank you.
If it helps to provide a little bit more information that I found from the newspaper, speaking to people that worked there, they have two different sections of legal notices, like public notices and legal notices. And the one that they sent over and purchased the ad for, it has a disclaimer at the bottom of it saying that these notices are separate from legal notices. Oregon law requires notice of public meetings, including a list of items to be discussed at that meeting. So that disclosure is on there. For them to have posted the agenda for that newspaper, they would have had to pay for the alternate legal notice option, which would have cost more money. It just wasn't the standard way that it happened.
Thank you. Investigator, thank you for that. One last question before we decide how to proceed and vote on how to proceed. Please summarize as quickly as you can what else it is you would look at if we decided to move forward to an investigation.
I've talked to the newspaper and gotten all of the information as far as that goes. I would confirm with the IT department. It sounded like the agenda got posted on the newspaper the day after because they realized that they had forgot to do it beforehand. And so just getting those records of what was posted and when on the website, but a lot of the preliminary investigation of what happened with this agenda has already been talked about in their public meeting and discovered. So I think just kind of at this point, educating them and moving on with that.
Executive, any comments before we proceed? Please, if not, no problem. Thank you. Okay, you have one last comment from our respondent, Ms. Hammerson. Please, as briefly as you can. Ms. Hammerson, you're on mute. Ms. Hammerson, please proceed to a comment. You're on mute. Okay, I think we'll need to proceed. You're having trouble unmuting yourself, I think.
She's unmuted.
Can you talk now, Ms. Emerson?
I unmuted. Okay.
Please talk now.
I'm so sorry about that. My main comment is that our bylaws actually don't direct us that we have to have our meeting notices published on our website. Typically, they are sent to the news review. That is our standard process. And I just wanted to clarify too that the news review actually does post agenda items in their unpaid notices. So a legal notice is not required in order to have the agenda posted. And I can provide you guys with the link where they did post our meeting notice, and it does state at the bottom for agenda guidelines, it says that notices of public meetings should be sent to, and one of the ways to do that is the email at newsdesk@nrtoday.com. They must be received 3 business days before they need to be published, not the meeting date. These notices are separate from legal notices. Oregon law requires notice of public meetings, including a list of items to be discussed at the meeting. And when you go to their alternate option, which is to fill out their web form to do these same public meeting notices, there's a section where you can put your agenda items. So the intent of the news review is to allow these public meeting notices to list agenda items. The news review failed to post our agenda items, even though the full list of agenda items was provided to the news review. So I just want to clarify that that is our normal process, and the news review failed to print those agenda items. And in addition to that, the quote that we were using from the Department of Justice specifically states that paid display advertising is not required. That's that paid legal notice, and it's not required. And a governing body is not required to ensure that the release is published. So the fault of the news review of not putting the agenda item is not the responsibility of the board, according to the Department of Justice. Thank you for the additional time.
Let's proceed toward a decision here. Does any of my colleagues have a comment or a question in light of what we've heard from various sources? There's a motion pending on the table, which is to move forward. Am I right? To investigation? Okay, we're seeing no other hands. The administrator will please call the roll on item 5.8.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
I'm going to have a comment at the end of this series of issues before us, but I'll hold that off till we get done with item 61. That said, we'll move to item 59. I presume our investigator's report does not need to be repeated. Mr. Sullivan, you okay? Thank you. Commissioner Payne, item 59.
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Doug Mendenhall may have violated ORS 192-6401 and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you, Commissioner. The administrator will call the roll. Item 5.9.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Item number 60, Commissioner Payne, please.
I hereby move that the commission find that there's a substantial objective basis for believing that Janice Baker may have violated ORS 192-6401 and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you, Commissioner. The administrator will call the roll on item 5.9. That's the right number?
6-0.
So, pardon me, 60. Pardon me, 60. Administrator, please call the roll. Item 60. Thank you.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke. Oh, sorry, here. Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 61, Commissioner Payne, please.
I hereby move that the commission find that there's a substantial objective basis for believing that Michaela Hammerson may have violated ORS 192-6401 and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you, Commissioner. The administrator will call the roll. Item 61, please.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you, colleagues. To the respondents, thank you for being with us and for the character of your testimony. We appreciate your patience with our agenda. Our staff will be in touch with you. Let me just add this comment. Please understand that as we have decided to move ahead to an investigation, we have not found that there has been any kind of a violation of Oregon law. We are simply deciding that we need more information. This distinction is often not well understood, including by my friends in the media on occasion, so I make this point with emphasis today. Again, Ms. Hammerson and Mr. Mendenhall, thank you for your patience with our agenda today and for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Colleagues, let's move when the staff says we're ready to item 62 involving Mr. John West. And I believe Mr. West plans to join us by teams as, is that his attorney, Mr. King? Pardon me?
Yes.
King is the attorney? Okay. We have Mr. Connor King and Mr. John West joining us, and we'll proceed as soon as they're online.
Connor King is coming on right now.
Thank you.
We don't have West. I'm wondering if he's with his attorney.
Okay, we'll see.
His attorney was trying to get a hold of him. I can't open the chat right now. For some reason, it's blocking me. No response from Mr. John West.
Okay.
Mr. King, can you hear me?
Mr. West said that he is online and waiting to come in.
He is not in the waiting room. We just had another respondent have the same issue and they hadn't clicked the actual join meeting button. So they were in the initial window.
Are you able, Mr. King, to clarify that for Mr. West?
Yes, yeah, I'll let me give him a call real quick, just a second.
Okay, thank you.
We can also call him from the Teams meeting. He can join via phone that way, if that's easier. Don't have the email, so I can't.
He just did it again and said that he hit the join button and everything. It says, hold tight, we'll be right with you. If you guys are not seeing him, then I would recommend just calling him via just giving him a call and having him join that way.
Thank you, Mr. King. We're trying to call him right now.
You have reached the Josephine
Pardon me?
changes, divorce, restraining orders, jury duty, etc. Please hang up.
The courthouse number.
Yeah.
That was the number I had.
That was a courthouse number.
It's his office number. I don't believe I have his cell phone number unless you have it, Mr. King.
Yeah, can I put it in the chat to you?
Yes, please.
It says chat is only available during the meeting.
You could
I guess
email it to me.
Just have him read it.
Read it.
Oh, no,
His
yeah,
cell
okay.
phone.
Oh, no,
I'll go ahead.
Don't read it because it's gonna be.
Hold
On the
it.
recording.
Hold it.
Yeah, you can email it to Josh Soldier, the investigator.
Okay, I'll email it to Josh.
Thank you. Let's just stand at ease for a moment. We'll not official recess, just stand at ease while we try to obtain Mr. West.
Yes, there he is.
Teams?
He's in team,
Yes.
Here.
Well, let's wait till he at least see him.
There you go. Mr. West is on mute now, but
He is in the room
In the
though.
room. If you want to see if you can hear him.
Mr. West, can you hear me? And for what it's worth, you're on mute right now, so. We see your initials,
Yes.
Mr. West.
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. West, can you hear me? Mr. West?
Yes, I hear you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. There's your picture, Mr. West. Thank you for joining us. Sorry for the technology issues. They're part of what we live with every day. Let me just introduce this matter. Colleagues, we're moving to item 62 on our executive session agenda for November 1. For the record, Mr. King and Mr. West, my name is Dave Fiska. I'm acting as chair of the commission today. This is how we're going to proceed in the next moments. The first step will be to get a report from our investigator on your issue. The second step will be a time for us as commissioners to ask our investigator any questions if we have questions. The third step will be a time for either or both of you to make comments to us. For the record, we will ask you to identify yourself for the record when the moment arrives. Then step 4 will be a time for us as commissioners to ask you questions if we have any. And step 5 will be a time for us as a commission to make a decision on this matter before us today. So with that introduction, let me turn to our investigator, Mr. Sullivan, and please make your report. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair Fiscum and Commission. This is Investigator Josh Sullivan for the record. I'm presenting agenda item number 62. This is a complaint against John West, Chair of Josephine County Board of Commissioners. The complainant in this case alleges that Mr. West may have violated Oregon government ethics law by attempting to use his official position for financial gain and failing to publicly announce a conflict of interest. In this case, the Josephine County Board of Commissioners held a meeting on July 30th, 2024. Mr. West began the meeting with a discussion about whether to continue, suspend, or reduce the Josephine County community development fees. Mr. West discussed the necessity of the fee with the community development director and suggested the possibility of restructuring or pausing it. Mr. West's initiation of the board's discussion of the community development fees at the July 30th meeting appears to be for the purpose of having the board consider future action. Thus, even though the board did not vote at this meeting, it appears the board was deliberating on a matter at which they may take action in the future. Therefore, by deliberating, it appears Mr. West was taking action under ORS 244020 and necessitating that Mr. West make a conflict of interest disclosure. Mr. West has been previously approved for multiple subdivisions within the county. Mr. West is a property developer and president of new property development and construction businesses which operate within Josephine County. Therefore, the payment of development fees appears to directly impact Mr. West's business. Mr. West did not declare a conflict of interest when he appeared to raise his own private development concerns while he was participating in a board meeting as a chair of the commission. Mr. West and his businesses own 15 properties within Josephine County, which are subject to local regulatory taxes and fees. It appears Mr. West may have attempted to avoid financial detriment when he used his position as a county commissioner to request a restructuring of the community development fee, and by doing so, he may have engaged in a prohibited use of office violation. It should also be noted that Mr. West states that he is part of a recognized class of landowners and developers, and he would not be affected by a change in a community development fees differently than any other member of that group. Only the commission may establish criteria for or identify the classes that qualify under the class exception. And in this case, Mr. West did not request a class determination from the commission in advance of the July 30th meeting. Based on the information available in the preliminary review, there appears to be a substantial objective basis to believe that John West may have violated the conflict of interest and prohibited use of office provisions of Oregon government ethics law. The recommendation is to move this case to investigation.
Thank you, investigator. Colleagues, any questions for our investigator based on hearing his report? Seeing no hands raised and hearing no voices, now's the time to move to the opportunity for comments from those appearing before us today. That includes Mr. West and his counsel, Mr. King. Gentlemen, either one of you or both are free to make any comments to us for the record. And if you do, please introduce yourself for the record. Either one of you can go first. Is fine with us. Your choice. Thank you.
Hi. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Connor King. I'm representing Mr. West with respect to this hearing. I want to make a couple of points. I will try not to take too long. In my opinion, there's a myriad of issues with the preliminary report, including characterization and assumptions made in the report. Primarily those assumptions and characterization, I would say one of the biggest issues that Mr. West had specifically was that in the actual meeting, the report says that Mr. West was speaking in the first person about his properties, questioning the director about that. That is simply not the case. If you listen to the video recording of the meeting, which I did again this morning, you can tell that he is speaking in sort of a collective I sense when he's talking about You know, he said, why should I pay for code enforcement when I'm building a house? I paid my fees. That's not what I'm supposed to be paying for, that kind of thing. He's speaking in the context of an example. He brought multiple receipts with him to the meeting from homeowners who had built homes and needed permits. He was using those examples, and he was using I in the collective sense. He was saying, you know, I'm not paying for you to go track A, B, and C or do code enforcement. I'm supposed to be paying for, you know, whatever, my plumbing permit, mechanical permit, electrical permit, that kind of thing. So that is something that Mr. West definitely wanted to clarify. A couple of other items, you know, he talks about, you know, I think you see my point. It's not fair to charge citizen A for something they had nothing to do with, that kind of thing. But primarily, what happened here is this issue was brought to Mr. West's attention by the finance department, basically indicating that maybe we have a legal issue here. We might have an issue with the this kind of fee structure violating Oregon state law. There is, because certain fees were being paid for permits, but they were going to a sort of general fund fee, and that was a potential, you know, legal liability for the county. So it was something that the commissioners, Mr. West, because it was brought to his attention, wanted to discuss at a meeting, and they invited the the head of the department for permits to that meeting so they could get more information. The meeting did not include any call for action. There was no decision. There was no vote. Legal counsel was there. They were just, you can tell by who's there and what was discussed, that the purpose of the meeting was to determine whether there was any legal liability to the county for this kind of stuff. And Mr. West's point was, well, look, you know, there's this ORA statute that doesn't allow us to charge citizens for permit fees that aren't for the specific service that they're getting. And this seems like a problem. I mean, you can see how it's not fair that somebody's being charged for code enforcement when they didn't do anything wrong. And with respect to Mr. West himself, as the report states, he or his businesses own 15 properties. Only 2 of those properties even have the potential to be subdivided and developed. One of them has been listed for sale in its undeveloped state. There's no plans there, and the other property hasn't been subdivided, and there are no plans there. Regardless, Mr. West does not have a contractor's license. His companies, all they do is move dirt. They don't do any construction or any type of building that would require one of these permits. I think in the last 4 years, the only permit that the report indicated that he even got was one where he was helping his daughter. His daughter was building a house, and so he took her to the county offices and helped walk her through the process of permitting. I'm not sure how Mr. West is implicated. I believe the permit is in his daughter's name. So, and even the department head indicated himself that Mr. West does not, his businesses don't typically involve securing permits. So the only, let's see. And the report listed he's only obtained 5 permits total since 2017, and those, you know, it's the report doesn't list any more information about those, but that is an uncommon number of permits for a regular citizen to have over the course of 7 years, especially if they, you know, let's say they're helping a family member build a house or something like that. With respect to the meeting itself, I can't find any examples of a meeting like this where legal counsel and a department head are brought in to discuss a specific department practice, and whether, you know, there might be legal issues with that practice for the county, where it you know, there's no action taken, no I mean, it's literally just a discussion to figure out what actually it is that is happening with those fees, like what's actually going on there. Let's see. So as far as I can tell from my review of the report, the formula under the formula are articulated by the report, anyone who may potentially apply for permits in the future, even though their business does not involve obtaining building permits, and even though they aren't anticipating getting any permits, should declare a conflict of interest for a simple discussion of potential legal liability for the city, which did not involve any recommendations, any decisions, or any action items of any kind. In fact, the meeting just ended. It didn't even when Mr. Stevenson had to leave the meeting, and there was no further discussion about it. Mr. West didn't even take a position per se on the community development fee at issue, except to register his concern that it might be illegal under the Oregon statutes and could therefore represent potential legal liability to the city. And then one point I wanted to mention with respect to Mr. Sullivan's discussion just now, or the point just now with the class exception, that is taken from a conversation that I had with Mr. Sullivan, and Mr. West was present as well, where my point was simply that as far as I can tell under the report, the class of people would be any citizen applying for a permit. I mean, Mr. West's business, he doesn't do that as a matter of his business, and he doesn't even have properties that where he would, where it's something that he would be doing. So in any case, I think that's it, unless Mr. West wanted to say anything more, or unless he wanted to point to anything that I hadn't said that I should be adding.
Mr. West, if you have a comment, please make it now. Thank you for being in Salem remotely.
Yes, thank you, Commission. This is John West. Hey, the only reason why this matter become before the board was because the finance director had pointed out that there was a planning fee charged, and it took in $823,000 last year, and that the money was being transferred out of that planning fee into other areas of that department, and code enforcement being one of them, and solid waste being one of them. And the state statute is very clear that you cannot charge somebody for a service, a fee, a service that they don't use. And so that was one of the reasons why this become before the board and legal counsel to determine, are we following a state statute? And if we're not, do we need to adjust this fee? Does it need to give another name? Do we need to, how do we do it so we're not caught in a legal matter? And in the meantime, I had pulled just 2 cases, and one was an exempt structure, and a 66 by 304 foot ag building, and it was for a cannabis farm. And they paid a $75 exempt structure fee, but in there they paid a community development fee of $2,576. And then another one, I could have pulled hundreds, but I only pulled 2 for that meeting. And it listed the person's plumbing fees, the mechanical fees, their building fees, all their development fees, and then it has a separate development fee of 1%, $1,134. And so the question was asked, well, if we're moving this money around and it's going to code enforcement, these people, if their money goes to code enforcement and there is no code enforcement violation, they could potentially sue the county because they're paying a fee that is not for the cost of service that they paid for. And so that was the whole discussion. It was just a discussion to make sure that legally we were not putting ourselves in a bad spot. It was for no other reason. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. West. Colleagues, now is the time for any of us to ask questions of either Mr. King or Mr. West. If there are questions, please raise your hand or get my attention, and you can ask those questions of our 2 respondents. Commissioner Thompson, please.
Thank you. This can be either for Mr. West or Mr. King. So the way I understand the fee that is at issue here is anybody who did a building project in the county would have to pay these community development fees. Is that correct?
So the way, and Mr. West can correct me, but it's for any type of building thing like mechanical, electric, plumbing, that kind of thing. None of which, I mean, Mr. West and his companies don't do anything like that. They don't do any building, so it wouldn't apply to any activities that they do. But yes, I believe anybody who's applying for a permit, like a building permit of any kind, this would apply in some fashion. Even where, as Mr. West points out, maybe it shouldn't because certain things are supposed to be exempt.
And then Mr. West doesn't do these buildings. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes, yeah, he does not build. He doesn't have a contractor's license. All he does is basically move dirt around, and then sell like pieces of property. And he hasn't even. It's been a while since he's done that. He only has of the 15 properties indicated, only 2 of them even could be developed. One of them is being sold. It's currently listed for sale, and it hasn't been developed at all. And another one hasn't been subdivided or anything like that. But even if it were, Mr. West isn't in the business of building. So,
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Any other questions? Mr. Payne, please.
Mr. King, you don't dispute, though, that Mr. West has applied for 5 of these permits and has accrued $3,000 in these fees in the past. I mean, that's in the record. That's public record, correct?
So I don't have the permits in front of me, so it's hard to dispute it. I hadn't had time to gather the permits. But I am not sure about the 2022 one because it's my understanding he was walking his daughter through the process for building her own house, and that permit was or should have been in her name. The other ones in the past, yeah, I think they were pre-2020 or 2020 and before, and I think there were, he has in the past applied for permits for a couple of different items. Right. I would just add that, well, anyway, I guess that's pretty much it on that point. Yeah.
I can tell you, Commission, 3 of those permits were in 2017, and it was when our family built our home that we live in. One was for our home, one was for our shop, and one was for a lean-to cover off the side of the shop. So that's what 3 of those permits were for in 2017.
And that was through those permits, though, were applied for through your business Axis Development, though?
No, they were for me personally.
Mr. Payne, further follow-up? I know you're.
Yeah, I just think like I have some questions, and I think for me, like I probably would lean towards just moving this into investigation because I have some questions that I think further investigation might be helpful. Again, not investigation being what it is, it's not finding any sort of violation, but I just think based on the report and based on hearing what I'm hearing, I'm left with are questions. And so I think at this point an investigation would be helpful to answer those questions and maybe determine if a class exception would apply, which it might in this situation. But I think at this point for me, I would think a further investigation may be helpful in this situation.
Executive, can you give me a quick summary of what you perceive to be our jurisdiction here? Because one of the comments made a minute ago dates back to 2017, which jurisdiction, and that prompts in part my question, but please.
So the commission does not have authority to investigate or inquire about matters that occurred prior to 4 years. before the complaint was filed. Whether he applied for those permits in 2017 isn't an issue. Like, we're not investigating or whether he got a permit. The issue is, does he have a conflict of interest that required disclosure? It may only be a potential conflict of interest. That wouldn't have prevented his discussion, but required disclosure. And he would have a conflict of interest if the matters being discussed could result in a financial impact. So the fact that he or his daughter, who is his relative under the law, obtained permits in the past could potentially be relevant to whether he had a potential conflict of interest requiring disclosure.
Thank you. Let me just ask this one further, make a further comment. Nor is it within our jurisdiction to be reviewing or investigating the placement of dollars within a county budget.
Of course not. No, we have no jurisdiction.
Our Mr. West has suggested about were these dollars placed in the proper way relative to the purpose which they were paid. That goes beyond our jurisdiction from an ethics commission standpoint, if I've stated that properly. Am I right?
Correct. The only matters that are relevant to the case before you are, did he have a conflict of interest requiring disclosure? Was the disclosure made? And did he use his position, engage in a prohibited use of position by trying to eliminate a fee that he might have been required to pay?
Thank you. Colleagues, further comments or questions? No question. Commissioner McCauley, please.
Thank you, Chair Fiska. I would just agree with Commissioner Payne's remarks on that. And then in light of Director Meyer's additional information she just provided, I would support a motion to move forward with it to investigation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? Hearing and seeing none. Commissioner Payne, are you prepared to make a motion?
Thank you, Chair. I am prepared to make a motion. I hereby move that the commission find that there is a substantial objective basis for believing that John West may have violated ORS 244-1202A and ORS 244-0401, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions about the motion now before us from my colleagues? Hearing and seeing none, the administrator will call the roll on item 62.
Commissioner Thompson.
No.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez.
Aye.
Commissioner Mason.
Aye.
Commissioner McCauley.
Aye.
Chair Fiska.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-1.
Thank you. First, and a couple comments quickly. Mr. King and Mr. West, thank you for your patience and your diligence in preparing your comments for us today. We genuinely appreciate it. Our staff will be in touch with you. And as I often do, let me make this additional comment for the record. Please understand that as we have decided to move forward to an investigation, we are not, emphasize not, finding that there has been an ethics law violation. We are simply deciding that we need more information. This distinction is often not well understood. I hope it will be better understood at some point. So I make this point with emphasis today. Let me add to thank you again for your appearance before us today, and we hope you have a good weekend. Thank you. And our staff will in fact be in touch with you officially. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, if you're willing to persevere with me to the further agenda, the executive says move. I know, but I'm trying very hard. We'll now consider, can we do items 63 and 64 together, Mr. Sullivan?
They're separate.
They're separate? Thank you. So the first one is 63 involving David Stockdale from the city of Umatilla.
He's entering right now.
Mr. Stockdale is entering.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I would just like the record to reflect that when I was acting chair, we got done with the meeting in an hour.
That's because of a shorter agenda.
That's I'm not looking for excuses here. I'm just stating a fact.
An hour.
Are you on the record again? I'd like to make a motion to send you. Okay, Mr. Stockdale, can you hear me?
Yes, however, I'm not Mr. Stockdale. I'm Caden Sipe, the mayor of Umatilla.
No, he shouldn't be
present.
Your item is next.
No,
No, he's.
No.
No, I know. Next.
He's the complaint. We're not.
Pardon me. Yes, this is not your item. You're not allowed to be here. It's only the person against whom a complaint has been filed.
It's, that is the number that we have for the respondent on the contact sheet.
Okay.
That is why that's why he was, so our apologies, that is on our administrative end. But we are gonna have to remove you from the meeting.
No problem. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Thank you, and we're trying to get Mr. Stockdale, am I right? Trying as hard as we can to get Mr. Stockdale.
Can we do have, the respondent for 64. Josh, if you want to give me that number and I can work with Charlie to, okay.
So do 64 first? Your suggestion?
Yeah.
Is that okay, executive? Okay, we'll do item 64 first, colleagues, and it's still executive session, so we'll try to get Mr. Duluth on the phone.
He's already on, he's coming
He's
into the
in
room
right now?
Yep.
Mr. Duluth, are you on the phone or online? Can you hear me?
You're on mute.
Mr. DeFloth or Mr. DeFloth, however you pronounce your name, I apologize.
That's okay. It's DeFloth. It's all good.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can
Oh,
you
we
hear
can
me?
see you now. Thank you very much. I want to introduce myself. My name is Dave Fiska. I'm the acting chair of the commission today. We're going to consider your item now before us on the executive session agenda. We'll have a four-part process. First, we'll hear from our investigator. Second, we'll have questions for that investigator if we choose to ask them. Third, it'll be your chance to make your comments to us. Fourth, we may ask you questions if any questions come up. And fifth, we'll make a decision on the matter facing us today. That said, welcome here. And the first step will be for our investigator, Mr. Sullivan, to make a report to us. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fiscom and Commission. This is Investigator Josh Sullivan. For the record, I'm presenting agenda item number 64. This is a complaint against Darren Dufflaw, City Councilor for the City of Umatilla, Oregon. The complaint in this case alleges that Darren Dufflaw may have violated Oregon government ethics law by attempting to use his official position for financial gain and failing to publicly announce a conflict of interest. Additionally, Mr. Dufflaw may have failed to accurately complete his 2022 through 2024 annual verified statements of economic interests. Mr. Dufflaw is the co-owner of the Umatilla-based business Cookie LLC, which has two DBAs, The Bridge Bistro and Brews and Maple Moose Coffee Company. Mr. Dufflaw would have been met with an actual conflict of interest each time he as city councilor discussed or voted on the approval of funds designated for one of his businesses. It appears that Mr. Dufflaw, while acting in his official role as city councilor, voted to approve invoices which included funds directed toward Cookie LLC, a business with which he is associated, on several occasions from 2021 to 2023. The minutes for the city council meetings do not reflect that Mr. Dufflaw ever declared a conflict of interest. In fact, they showed that he made several motions to approve the grant payments. Mr. Dufflaw stated in his written response that he should have been more observant when he voted on approving the paid invoices, and the information in this preliminary review appears to indicate that he may have been met with an actual conflict of interest on multiple occasions, yet he did not refrain from voting on the matters. He may have also been met with a potential conflict of interest when he voted to approve and increase funding for the city's 2024 Rock the Locks event, an event which could have provided his DBA, The Bridge and Brews and Bistro, a previous vendor, an opportunity to earn income. But for Mr. Dufflaw's position as city councilor, he may not have had the opportunity to receive these income opportunities and may have prohibited use of office. It additionally appears that Mr. Dufflaw may have failed to report or it appears that he failed to report Kuki LLC as a source of income exceeding an aggregate amount of $1,000 on question 7 of his 2022 through 24 SEIs. Based on the information available in the preliminary review, there appears to be a substantial objective basis to believe that Darren Duffloff may have violated the conflict of interest and prohibited use of office, as well as the SEI provisions of government ethics law. The recommendation is to move this case to investigation.
Thank you, investigator. On the basis of that report that you've heard, any comments from or questions from commissioners? Hearing and seeing none, Mr. Dufloff, if I'm saying your name right, if I'm not, I apologize again. This is your chance to make any comments to us that you choose to make for the record. Please proceed.
Yes, sir. First of all, I'd like to thank the commission for allowing me to come talk today. I appreciate your role in governing and what you do to keep this whole state as on a level playing field. In reviewing the report by your staff, I see some misunderstanding that I had on my part in regards to the complainant. I would like to say that ignorance is not an excuse, and I take full responsibility and accountability for those and a lack of knowledge and not educating myself for those responsibilities on my elected position and the process that it maintains at that level. I completely misunderstood the declaration of conflicts and perceived conflicts. As you can see in the report, there's a part where I abstain on something, and it was my assumption that was good enough for the conflict, and I now know that I need to actually verbalize a conflict or perceived conflict. I did not do these things maliciously or intend to, by any means, deceive anyone. It was just a complete oversight on my part, and again, I completely understand that ignorance is not an excuse by any means. And as far as the SEE filings, I put on the SEE filing, Cookie LLC. I missed the, subsection 7 or section 7 and the subparagraphs where I have to put the DVAs. I will be more diligent in the future. I would ask, some grace from the commission. Also, I would ask for training that's available for that. I got 24 years with the Oregon Department of Corrections. I understand having high values of ethics and approach to what we do. I hold that in the highest regards. And again, I apologize for taking up the committee's time on something of this nature when in reality it should have been taken care of on the front half. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and for the clarity of them. We really appreciate it. Any questions for Mr. Dufloff? Hearing and seeing none, the time has now come for us to make a decision about how to proceed. I'm open to comments from colleagues on the direction based on their recommendation, which is in fact from our staff, which is to proceed. Any comments? Mr. Thompson, please.
Mr. Sullivan, assuming this moves to investigation and assuming the facts bear out, is this something you see landing in a letter of education?
Yeah, I think there's a little more investigation to do as far as whether any grant approval, he had a role in approving any grants for his business. It seems like the majority of the complaint is that he approved paid invoices, which included payments for his business, which not approving the grants themselves. So I think that there's a good chance that it could lead to a letter of education.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Commissioner Thompson, and for the answer. I appreciate it. This, my quick report before we move on is that this is an item that sort of for me, be a nice one to deal with a letter of education now rather than moving forward, but we don't have that option. So colleagues, any other comments about how to proceed today? I'm looking for a motion. Commissioner Payne, please.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the commission find that there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Darren Dufloff may have violated ORS 244041 ORS 2440608 and ORS 2441202, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions on the motion now before us? Hearing and seeing none, the administrator will call the roll on item number 64, please.
Commissioner Resendez Gutierrez,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner McCully,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Chair Fiscum.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you, Mr. Duflock. Just to understand something I say to many here before us on these matters. We have not found there to be any ethics violation today. We have only identified the need for more information. That is not often a distinction well understood. We appreciate the candor of your comments today. Our staff will be in touch with you as we proceed toward what is likely to be a letter of education. We appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay, staff, Mr. Stockdale, is that next or not?
But we were able to get a hold of him. He's not joined yet. So we would ask that we move to 65. The respondent is in the small, has been waiting in the small conference room. So
Please, let's do that. Get Ms. McNeil here.
And Chair, she has asked